Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. This is Thomas Hyman, and today I want to talk to you about using Google Voice in your real estate business. I discovered Google Voice a few years ago, and a lot of people misunderstand it. They don't really know what it's about and how it can help them in their real estate business. So this is going to be a very informal presentation. I'll jump forth and back between screenshots and the camera, and just walk you through what I think really is an amazing solution for your real estate business. So let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. Number one, we're going to talk about what is Google Voice. How does it work? What is it not? And how can you use it as a phone system, a free phone system for your business in a sense. Then I'm going to walk you through how to get started with Google Voice. And the first step is to get a Gmail account set up. If some of you already have a Gmail account, then this might be repetitive, but it'll just take a couple of minutes. I'm going to go through how to set up Google Voice, including selecting a number. And we're actually going to set up a dummy Gmail account and just walk through it the way any other user would have to walk through that is setting up something with Google. Then we're going to look at configuring Google Voice, how to use Google Voice to make calls, send SMS messages from the web application out of Hangout, and using the mobile app. And I'm going to bounce forth and back and see if I can get my mobile phone onto the camera and just give you an idea of the different things that you can do. And I'll share with you how I personally use it, and that might give you some ideas. I'm going to also talk about how to use Google Voice to receive calls. I'm going to talk about call recording, and then finally, how you can use Google Voice as your master voicemail service for your mobile, and some of the great things that come along with that. So those are the things that we're going to talk about. And I'm going to go ahead and switch the screen sharing off now. And so again, welcome to this session today. I'm going to keep it very, very informal. And like I said, I'm going to bounce forth and back between the screen share and between Google Voice and between my mobile and between my own cell phone. And hopefully we'll be able to get through the session in about 30 minutes or so. I do want to tell you that we have a Q&A app in here. So if you have any questions, please jump in and ask your questions, and I will address them then. And then, of course, we're going to stream this as well. So if you want to refer to it later again, fast forward through it, or if you're just watching this as a recording right now, it is a great resource, and I invite you to share it with your friends and associates and coworkers as well, because again, Google Voice, in my opinion, is just an amazing tool that, again, I have used for several years now, and I think you're going to be very surprised at some of the things that you can do with Google Voice. So let's go ahead and walk through the list of things that we talked about. And I'm going to try and find my little PowerPoint presentation and just go through it step by step. I'm going to share a screen now with you. And let's go ahead and open a web browser and pretend that we are just setting up a Gmail account for the first time, because that really is the first step. You have to set up a Gmail account. And while I'm going here, let me talk to you about what is Google Voice and what isn't Google Voice, first of all. Google Voice really is a pseudo phone service. And actually, let me get back to the camera here. Google Voice is kind of like Grasshopper. I don't know if you've ever heard of their commercials, but it is a phone service in a sense. that you can make outbound calls and so forth, but it has some limitations. But in essence, Google Voice is a service that, number one, will assign you a phone number. You can pick a phone number, and you have the ability to have calls made to that number ring through at a number of different destinations. So when it first started, actually, the way Google Voice was packaged and used initially when it first came out was that you had this one universal number, and people can reach you at that number. So whether you're at home, this was back in the days when people still had home phones. So whether you're at home or in the office or on your mobile or on your Skype or online, somebody calls that number and you just have it ring all of your phones simultaneously. And then when you pick up the number, the call is connected. So that's how Google Voice really started at its origin. And then also you could use the same number to make outbound calls. So there was a web-based app originally called Google Talk. And so you were able to make calls from your PC using this Google Voice application. And again, it came out many, many years ago. And initially it was by invitation only, and then they rolled it out completely. And so that's how it started. But then Google Voice layered a lot of additional abilities to it. First of all, we have mobile applications now, so you can use Google Voice to receive calls on your phone as well as make calls from your phone. So it's like having a second phone in addition to your primary cell phone. So as a real estate agent, for example, I don't give people my cell number. When people ask me for my cell number, the number I give them is really my Google Voice number, because I can do almost anything through my Google Voice number that I do on my cell phone. I can receive calls, I can make calls, I can receive text messages, I can send text messages, get my voicemail. So it really allows you to do that very, very well. Another thing that Google Voice has is a great voicemail service with automatic voicemail transcription. And they were one of the very first ones to offer that. So when somebody leaves a message on your Google Voice voicemail box, then automatically the system will transcribe the voicemail. And sometimes it's not perfect. It might even sound funny sometimes, but you do get the gist. And so what happens is you get a text message as well as an email with the transcribed voicemail. And I would say 3 to 4 times I don't listen to the voicemail message because I get the message in text form and I know what to do with it. So it's a huge time saver. And then if you do want to listen to the message, you just click on a link and you can listen to it. And you have the ability to use Google Voice as your singular voicemail box for all of your services. So that's really Google Voice in a nutshell. But it integrates fully and tightly with Gmail and Google Apps. So it allows you to do some other things and some special configurations and settings that really are very, very helpful. For instance, using your Google Voice number for all of your business, not only do you have a separate number so people won't bother you on your cell phone, you can decide when calls ring through and when they don't, or who they call, whose calls ring through where, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. But you also have an archive, a history of every call made, every call received, every voicemail received, every text message sent, every text message received, and it's linked to the contact record in your Google Gmail contacts. And so you can search for things, any SMS messages or calls made or received with Sally. And I find that to be very, very helpful and much more user-friendly than you'll ever be able to do with your regular cell phone SMS messaging or call history. So again, let me dive back in. So this is basically a 30,000-foot overview of what Google Voice is. And now let's go ahead and get started and take a look at how to actually get set up and use Google Voice. So the first thing is you need to set up a Gmail account. And so I created what's called an incognito window, which is like a secret session on my PC. So it ignores the fact that I'm already logged into a Gmail account. I'm going to go to gmail.com. And when you go to gmail.com, it's going to prompt you for your login. And you can either sign in or you can create an account. So I'm just going to create an account here. And I'm going to call this here Anya Testerly. How about this? Now you got to pick a username, and your username is your Gmail address. So TNT 2015 test. Let's try that. TNT 2015 test at gmail.com. I'm going to pick a password, and I'm going to delete this account after we're done. It asks you for some personal information. I don't think you have to give it, but I'm just going to put it in here, you know. I'm not going to answer that, actually. Leave that here. Now it asks you for a mobile phone number. You can just skip that. You don't have to put that in there, but you want to put that in there because it helps you keep the account secure, and they can send your information to it. Now it asks you for your current email address, and I'm not sure if this is mandatory. Let's just skip that. And there's a text 149, and all right, I gotta put in something here. So the next step is it'll ask you to create a Google Plus profile, which is a great idea. And if you don't have a Gmail account yet and a Google Plus account, you definitely want to have a Google Plus profile. Again, if you already have a Gmail account, we're just going to blow through this here real quick, and just going to continue on to Gmail now. So here we go. First step is complete. So I just created an anonymous Gmail account, TNT 2015 test@gmail.com. And this is what your Gmail box looks like. And from the drop down here, you go to contacts. I'm actually going to create a couple of contacts that we'll use later. Creating a couple of contacts here. And also within the contacts is where you can create groups. Up here, you can create groups. So Tony here, for example, I can add him to a group. I can create a new group and just call it testers here. So Tony is now part of those two groups. And Google Voice uses the contact records and groups. So we're going to get back to that here in a minute. So this is the first step. The second step is you got to get to Google Voice. And the URL to type in is voice.google.com. Now that's super important because that's really the only way to get to the Google Voice setup is voice.google.com. Now here it says, getting started. Please note Google Voice only available in the US. You will be required to verify an existing US phone number to get a Google Voice number. So I'm just going to go ahead and go through the process here. And so you can choose a brand new number from Google or use your existing mobile number to get the full set of Google Voice features. So again, you can actually use Google Voice if you don't use it for business, or if you just want to keep your mobile number, your cell phone number, and you don't want to set up a separate number, then you can just make your cell number your Google Voice number. So nothing changes with respect to your cell phone and your provider, and you'll use your phone exactly the way you always have used it, but you'll have now access to all of the Google Voice features and functionality that I'm going to walk you through under your cell number. And so again, if you like to use your cell number for business and that's the only number you've used and you've used it for years and everyone has it, then perfect. Then you would select here, I want to use my mobile number. Now, if you want to have a separate business number and you don't want people to have your cell phone number, let's say you haven't used your cell phone number in the past, then you would click here, I want a new number. Okay. So now you have to add a forwarding phone that will ring when that number is dialed. And I'm just going to try and see if I can put my number on here. Okay. So it's now going to send a text message to that number. Or actually, it's going to call me, and then I'm going to all right, so Google called me and it gave me the code, and now it's verified. So now I can search for numbers, and I can search by zip code or city. So let me try area code. I'm in 941. And here's a whole bunch of 941 numbers that I can pick up now. So I'm going to go ahead and select this number here, 4790391. Continue. And it's going to add the number to my account. And I'm done. So this is how easy it is. And I now have linked that Google Voice number to one of my phone numbers. And I set up my Google Voice number, and this is my number right here. Okay, so this is really how easy it is to set up a Google Voice account. And again, if you are right now using your cell number for everything and you do not want to have a separate number, then you can make your cell number your Google Voice number. Also, if you get a Google Voice number, a separate number, the way I just did with this test account, you can always switch things around later. If you want to get rid of that number and just use it for your cell phone, you can do that. I just wanted to show you how easy it is to get a phone number. And the best part is it's free. There's zero cost, and you can actually use your Google Voice number to make phone calls absolutely free in the US and Canada. So this is even better than Skype. You know, with Skype, you can get a Skype in number, which is a number that people can call you on, and you can answer the calls on Skype. But Skype charges for that. And if you want to make outbound calls, Skype also charges for that. So Google Voice, especially for people here in the United States, is a perfect alternative to Skype, and it's absolutely free. Now, let's take a look at, we went through setting up the Google Voice account. So let's take a look at configuring Google Voice. And there's a number of different ways we can configure Voice. And you have a screen here, which is voice.google.com, and you're logged in with your Gmail account. So you can always get back to this by just going straight to voice.google.com, and you end up in your inbox here. And so you have your inbox, you have voicemails. So this would be the voicemail that Google sent. And this is what the transcription looks like when you receive a voicemail. Then you get texts, and there's nothing there right now. And then you have a history, which is a history of all of your calls, incoming, outgoing, voicemail, texts, everything. And then you have more features down here, okay? Like recorded calls, if you record a call, or missed calls, spam, yada, yada, yada. And so when you're in the inbox here, the first thing I want to show you is when you check this box, you have the ability to archive. When you archive it, it goes out of your inbox, but it will still be in the voicemail section because it's the voicemail, or in the text section, or it'll be in your history. You can mark it spam. So if a telemarketer calls you, you can do two things. You can either just hit spam, and then in the future, any messages from that number will be put in the spam folder. You can also go down to more, and you can go ahead and block the caller. When you select block caller, then you can just block this number, and whenever somebody calls, they're just going to get a recording that the number is not in service, just as if it was a disconnected number. You can also call this person back by clicking here. You can play the actual voice message, or you can go ahead and click text to send a text message. And then here on add, you can, if this was just a call coming in with that number, you can go ahead and click add, and it will add it to the address book. So now let me go ahead and do something. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and send a text message from my phone to Google Voice and Google Voice back. So I'm going to go here in the inbox, and at the top you see call and text. So I'm going to click text, and I'm just going to text to this number here that I have in the address book already. I'm going to send this text message. Boom, off it went. And I received the message. And I just replied to the message. And here is the reply. And I could text back. You can see that it has my name here because I put that number in the address book. I'm just going to go ahead and archive this message. And I'm now going to go ahead and send a text to my cell number here. And I just got that message. And I'm going to text right back. And here it is. And so here you can see there's just a number. And I got my message and the message back out. I can reply back. So it's very, very easy to carry on conversations, right from your interface here, from your web-based interface on your computer or your iPad or what have you. But I can click here on add now, and I can add this record to my address book. And this will create a contact record now. Which is the same address book that Gmail uses. So these are some of the basic things I can do right here through the web interface. I can also make phone calls, and there's two ways to call. You can click here on call, and when you call from a web interface, it basically gives you the option to make calls with Hangouts or make calls with your cell phone. So if I'm going to put in the number right now, if I had this phones to call with home, then what will happen is Google Voice will actually call this number and will call my number, my home number, and then connect the two, okay? And I could have it remember the choice, and that'll be the choice forever moving forward. The other choice would be Hangouts. And Hangouts is the Google chat and call application. It's kind of like Skype. It's Google's answer to Skype. You can use Hangouts to send text messages. You can use Hangouts to have chats with a group of people. You can use Hangouts to have voice calls. You can use Hangouts to have video calls with one person, with many people. And you can also use Hangouts to have phone calls. Once you have Google Voice activated, you can actually use Hangouts. And in the address in your Hangout application, you can just go ahead and put in a phone number, and it'll call it. And then you can use your headset or whatever on your phone, and it's just IP telephony. It's just like Skype works. If you ever use Skype, Skype, you can use text messages, you can do voice messages, you can do video conferencing and so forth. And actually right now, this entire presentation is done on Hangout, which is called Google Hangout on Air, which is a Hangout that also simultaneously gets broadcast and then recorded and put onto the YouTube channel. So you can use that to make calls from your phone. And I'm not going to make a call right now with Hangouts because I don't want to break something, since we're already on a Hangout session. So I don't know what that would do, and I don't want to cause any kind of problems here. Now let's take a look at some of the configuration settings, and this is where things really get exciting, and then I'll take you to the mobile app. In every Google application, whether it's your Gmail, and by the way, here you have the messages going forth and back in your Gmail email as well. You have this little wheel for settings. So you can do your settings for your Gmail and also your settings for your Google Voice. So I'm going to click on settings here right now and just take you through this real quick. First of all, forward calls to Google Chat and home. Basically what that means is that when somebody calls this number, it's going to ring. Google Chat means your PC. So when you log into your Google Voice, it's going to ring and a little window pops up, and it's going to use Hangout to answer that call. But also, it's going to ring your phone. And you can add many more phones in here. So you can go ahead and add, another 5-10 phones if you want to. And you also have the option to decide if you receive text messages on this phone. And this is for mobile phones only. So when you set up your account initially, hopefully you used your mobile phone, not a home phone, and then you will automatically get text messages on your mobile phone as well. So the great thing is, even if you don't have the Google Voice app installed on your phone, text messages will still be delivered to your phone via SMS, and also when there's voicemail and so forth, it'll be delivered. The next tab over here is voicemail and text. So you can set different kind of settings, and I'm going to show you my actual personal Google Voice account here in a couple of minutes so you can see what that looks like with a bunch of stuff in here. But first of all, you can have multiple recordings, and you can decide which one is your standard greeting, and you can decide which greeting do you want to use for different things. So when somebody calls you, you have the ability to have multiple recordings. Imagine, for example, you have a group called prospects, and another group called clients, and another group called past clients, and another group called family, and another group called friend. And so you can actually set different rules based on the group that the contact is in to give them a different kind of voicemail recording, or even to ring different numbers. So you could, for example, have your family will ring to everything, but your clients will only ring to your cell phone, for instance. So you have a lot of ability to configure things. Now, also here, you can say, okay, email me the message to this email address, forward me text messages to this phone, to this email address. You could uncheck that if you don't want to get text messages in your email. You can create a voicemail pin. So when you call your own number and check your voicemail that way, it'll ask you for your pin. And then here, by default, it transcribes voicemail, and so again, you get a text message and an email with a transcription of the voicemail. The next tab is calls, and so by default, it's on. Now you have an option. You ask unknown callers to say their name. So by default, call screening is on. You may want to turn it off. I actually turned it off on my phone, but I had it on for a long time. And basically the way call screening works is when somebody calls, if they're in your address book or if they have already recorded the name in the past, then you're going to get a call when your phone rings, you pick up, and it says, Jane Smith is calling. And then you can decide if you want to take the call or if you don't want to take the call. So it gives you the ability to screen the call. And then you can also decide if you want to record the call or not when you take the call. With this box here, it'll just ask unknown callers to say their name. Otherwise, it'll just announce their number. Or you can just turn it off. I ended up turning it off just because it was like a little bit of a pain to always get that added extra step. Caller ID incoming, you can have it display the caller's number or display your Google Voice number. So when you have your calls ringing through to your cell phone, you can decide, do I want to see the caller's caller ID, which will also pop up their name when they call, or do you want to display your Google Voice number? And this is, again, when you have two separate numbers. I always just leave it to display the caller ID. You can enable DND, do not disturb, so then everything goes straight into voicemail during that time frame. Missed calls, you can have missed calls placed in the inbox, or you can send missed calls to your email. And then you have call option. If you check this, enable recording, so you can hit 4 and then switch between conferencing options and inbound calls. So call recording does not work with outbound calls because it will announce that this call is now being recorded. So this only works with inbound calls. Now, in Florida, in the state of Florida, you need to have the consent of all parties on the call. In some states, it's enough if just one person is consenting. In the state of Florida, all parties, and there's severe penalties, including criminal penalties, for wiretapping calls without getting everyone's consent. So if it is something, let's say a client is instructing you to do something, then, what, Joe, can I record this? Sure, no problem. Then I hit 4, and then when the recording starts, and say, this call is now being recorded, and everyone is authorizing this call to be recorded, and then carry on with the call and have Joe repeat his instructions to you. So now you have a permanent record, and this recorded call will also be linked to his contact record, and it'll be in your Google Voice history. So it is a great tool to have, but you want to make sure that you get permission. And that's, again, one of the reasons why it only works on inbound calls, and it actually will record or will announce the call is now being recorded. Groups and circles. This is where you can customize your rules based on groups and circles. And circles are circles in your Google Plus circles, okay? So, and here you can see, for example, friends forwards to Google Talk and Home, and greeting is system standard, call screen is on. So if you wanted to, for example, for friends, change that, you could go ahead and change the phones that are being rung. You can change your contact greeting and create a different kind of greeting. And you can also enable or disable call screening for this group. So again, you could, for example, set up rules here that show you all contacts. So if anyone is in my address book, then use these rules. There is no call screening. But if an anonymous person calls someone that is not in my address book, then I want call screening on, So the way I would do that is I go to all contacts here, and I'm going to say call screening off. And anonymous callers, the call screenings are on, okay? So again, you have the ability to set rules here for how to handle the call. When somebody calls that number, what's going to happen with them? Is it going to ring all 7 possible numbers for you, or is it going to just ring those 2 numbers? So for example, if your wife calls, you could have a configuration that if your wife calls or a family calls, that you go ahead and this Google Voice will ring absolutely everyone. I mean, it's going to ring your work, your home, your school, your relatives, your cell phone, your other phones, anything and everything, because you want to make sure that your wife can get a hold of you, okay? You could even create a group just like emergency calls, and that's just a group that maybe only has 1 or 2 contacts. The next thing you can do, which is very exciting, is you can create call widgets. In call widgets, you can have a call me button put onto your website. And again, bear in mind, all of these things are absolutely free to use. Now there's billing. There's no calling credit here right now. You can go ahead and set up billing here if you're going to make international calls. But again, within the US, there are no charges. Calling is free, so you don't have to worry about that. And then here is the account, and you can see the settings here. Visit Google account settings, and I'm going to go ahead now and try to cancel this account. Delete Google account. What the heck was my password? And by the way, if you are going to set up an account, use an email address or recovery email address, because if you ever forget your password, there's no way for you to get it back if Google doesn't have an email or a phone number to reach you at. But you could create a truly, totally anonymous account. I mean, as a side note, if you wanted to have a private, completely anonymous Google account, you just go and you can just go and go to an internet cafe or Starbucks or something and open up a Gmail account, and don't give them a phone number or a Gmail address. Of course, it will track the IP address from wherever you connect to it. So these are some of the things that you can do on the interface itself. And again, I myself set up just some basic rules. For example, I have a bunch of rental properties, so I created a group called tenants. And so when the tenants call, I'm going to give them a totally different recording than my standard recording when anyone else calls me. Also, I configured my phone to use Google Voice as the voicemail system. So when somebody calls my real cell phone number and leaves a message, it's handled by Google Voice. And it can be done very, very easily through the Google Voice app. Now, another thing that I've done with my phone, and I'm going to show you a couple of things right now, if I can manage to get onto my phone onto the camera. I'll try it. This may be a semi-feeble attempt, but you know, this is my phone. It's obviously mirror reversed. And I don't really know how to fix that right now. But when I call a number, I'm just going to call a number, you know, someone that called me. And I'm going to push my call button. And so it asks me how I want to handle the call. Basically, I got a pop-up. It says call with Google Voice or call without Google Voice. And then if I push the call with Google Voice, then the call is going to be made using Google Voice, and it'll have my Google Voice caller ID. And if I do without Google Voice, then the call is made using my cell phone caller ID. And that way, you know, when I do business all day long, every single call I make, I use my Google Voice number. So I do keep the two separate. There are very, very few people that have my actual cell phone number. Any call that comes in, I see the caller ID, and it's handled exactly the same way, except for the voicemails with the tenants and some other groups. When a call comes in, I just see the call ID, I answer the call, and you know, so it doesn't make a difference whether somebody called my Google Voice number or my cell phone number. Now, on my phone, there I have an app for Google Voice, and it's this little thing here. When I push it, and I apologize, there's not very good notice here. So here's my text messaging going forth and back with the person, you know, the fake account that I had created. But basically, the Google Voice application is a great app that you can use to do texting forth and back. You can access your call history. You can access your voicemails. When I get a voicemail, for example, and I want to listen to it, then I can go ahead and do that. So here's, for example, my voicemail messages, and I can tap on it, and it brings back, you know, this is, I got a dentist appointment, and you probably can't see that but it's the transcription. Hi, it's Michelle, blah blah blah, from the dentist's office, and there's no need for me to listen to it. But if I wanted to listen to it, I can push on an icon and listen to the actual message. And so if the transcription really is off, then I can do that. Also, I want to show you how you can search for things in an archive. And I'm just going to go ahead and share the screen again and go to my main screen here. So we covered how to make calls, SMS from web, Hangout and mobile app, using Google Voice to receive calls, call recording. All right, I want to show you a couple of things of what I'm doing in my Google Voice. And I actually have Google Voice plugin here in my Chrome browser, so I can go here and I can send a quick text message to someone. I could even also initiate a call here, or on the inbox, I can see what came in, and then I can archive it or text back or delete it. So I'm just going to hit archive, and my inbox is empty. And I can click here, go to inbox, which will take me straight to my voice.google.com. And there's nothing in my inbox. Now you can see there's 28 texts, so I didn't even read the text, and there's I just archived them, and there's 131 voicemails. The dark means that they are, unread or answered or whatever. Since I don't have to listen to it, I just see the text message. Then I got here, additional options: missed calls, received calls, placed calls, and then on the history too, you can see everything. So everything with every person, and the nice thing is that you can search. So just like you can search Gmail and find things in your Gmail account by keyword or number or whatever, I can search here. Testing. So here's, for example, a couple of test messages. Let's say if I'm looking for Joe, then I got a bunch of stuff here relating to Joe. I do a lot of texting out of Google Voice, and using my voice application on my phone, as well as here on the web, usually just using this thing, because if a message comes in and I'm on my computer, this will pop up, have a little number there. I know that there's a message, and then I can respond to it. And it really will do everything and anything that your phone does, with the exception of multimedia messaging. Multimedia messaging through Google Voice works for some cell providers, and it doesn't work with others. So you just have to test it. I don't use it for MMS. If I need to send a media message, then I'll just do it from my cell phone. I usually use WhatsApp for my media messaging, because WhatsApp allows you to send much larger. I can send a 10-minute video as an attachment on WhatsApp, which you just cannot do with MMS or SMS text messaging. So, and I think it used to be free. It's now, I think, $1 for the app, and it's WhatsApp app. So I highly recommend you check it out. But so other than that, I use Google Voice for all of the text messaging. So again, the final thing that I wanted to touch on in my little presentation here is using Google Voice as your master voicemail service for your mobile. When you download the Google Voice application from your App Store or from your Play Store, I use Android, during the setup, it'll ask you if you want to use Google Voice as the, to handle your voice messaging. And I would just say yes, because it's just so cool to have transcriptions texted and emailed to you when a voicemail comes in, so you don't have to listen to the voicemail message. Also, you can use, if you want to, Hangout. There's a Hangout app that you can download, which you can use to have, video messaging and I mean, video chats and what have you, not similar to Skype. It'll ask you, do you want to use Hangouts as your standard messaging service. And all these different messaging apps are asking that now because they all want you to use them for all their messaging. So Google Hangouts will ask you, do you want to use us for your text messaging? Facebook chat will ask you, do you want to use us as your default messaging application? And frankly, I always answer no to that now because I tested them and there are some serious shortcomings on those apps as it relates to multimedia messaging and some of the other things. So I would keep my messaging app separate. Okie dokie. I hope you got some value out of this. Again, I have used Google Voice now for several years, and I cannot tell you how awesome it is and how helpful it is to be able to find your customer's voicemail that they left you 3 months ago by just searching for it. How amazing it is when you're working on a deal and you're getting verbal instructions to actually record that call and have a record of what that person told you. So it's not going to be that he said, she said later on. How amazing it is to have it integrate with your address book and having different call rules, different forwarding rules, different voicemail messages, and different voicemail rules for contacts based on what they are. And I would just brainstorm some very simple groups. At its core, you have prospects. You could separate into buyers and sellers. You have current customers or clients that you're working with. You have past customers and clients. Then you have friends and family and other groups. And certainly, I think it'd be awesome to have a different message for your past customers than you have for your current customers or prospects. And that's just a nice added touch that you can create for free, an extremely professional, a nice touch that, again, will set you apart because I guarantee you maybe out of 100 realtors, one is doing it. And so it's an amazing tool. I hope you use it. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or text me. Follow me on Twitter at Thomas Hyman, and I'll be happy to help you in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to check the Q&A right now if there's anything, and there are no questions on the Q&A right now. So again, feel free to also post comments underneath the video, and I'll be happy to respond and work with you. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to getting together again next time. Next week, Thursday, I'm going to have a guest that will join me. He is let's just call him a social media maverick, and he's going to talk about using social media as a real estate agent and some of the things that you can do to really take your business to the next level. Hope you tune in. I will be sending out emails and inviting you. And as always, if you can't make the time, we will post a replay link. Thanks so much again, and have a wonderful day.